All right, hello. How's it going? Good to see you virtually. Let me make sure that I actually see myself on the other end, making sure I'm not talking to myself. Um, I also want to check the levels here. Okay. All right, I see myself. Wonderful. All right, so welcome. My name is Carolyn Peters. If you're here for the very first time, let me tell you a little bit about why I'm hosting these sketch sessions. So they're weekly sketch sessions, and I started doing them because before the pandemic hit, I ran a real life art studio where we would get together every week for either figure drawing, portrait drawing, drawing from imagination sessions, and we'd have like a group of people where we could feed off of each other's energy and where you had like this place to report to. And now that we're kind of in this weird new world that we're living in, this is the next best thing that I could think of, because I think it's really useful as artists to have a place to report to that kind of keeps us on task, that kind of takes away this, the planning of like, oh, when should I get my sketchbook and what should I be doing? If you have a place to just like go to at a certain time of the week, at a certain day of the week, and there's somebody who already planned out what you're going to be working on, I think it's sometimes easier to just keep in your practice, in your drawing practice. So I like to cycle through different subject matters. So every week I'm doing a different subject matter. We began with figure drawing, then we went into portrait drawing. This week it's animal drawing, in specific bears. And next week we'll go into inanimate objects. Now, if you're wondering, well, why don't you just do one thing? I've noticed on Instagram, maybe if you follow me there, that you do a lot of figure drawing right now. Like, why don't you just do figure drawing and are really consistent with that? And the answer is because I'm the kind of artist who wants to be able to draw anything from imagination. And if that is your jam, if you really want to get to a point where you can, whether it's from imagination or from observation, we want to get to a place where you can really draw anything, then having like this constant cycle might be really good for you as well. Also, I believe sometimes if we get too focused on just one thing, all of a sudden we get sick and tired of it and we just want to run away from it screaming. And so if you need to shake it up, it's good to just, go through different subject matter. And then also every single week, I'll bring a different focus to the subject matter, like a different lesson, if you will. So this week I'll be focusing on shape, and closely tied to shape are proportions. So those go hand in hand. So today I'll be sharing some imagery of bears, and you can either just draw from the imagery, put me on mute and have fun doing whatever the hell you want to do, or you can just watch me and kind of gather some of the tips I have for you. You don't need to know anything about bears to have fun tonight. That's the cool thing when you focus on shapes and proportions. You don't need to have any previous knowledge of the thing that you're drawing. You just need to know a couple of tricks of the trade. So if that sounds good to you, awesome. There was one more thing I wanted to say before we dive in. Oh yeah, if you have any requests, whether you're catching this live right now or if you are watching the replay, please put in the comments if there are any subject matters where you're just like, oh, I want to do this and I want to have some help, or if there are any lessons that you're looking for. I'd love to be of service. So without further ado, let me switch cameras and we'll dive right in. All right, so let's see, I need to do this one. Transition, and I need to get this focused. All right, so you should be able to see some bears, hopefully. Let me focus my camera. Alrighty, so I'm gonna begin with a guy on the log here. And I'm drawing with a fairly faint pencil. As I get further into the drawing, the marks will show up better. But for now, just know I'm kind of drawing light on purpose. And so if you've been working with me, you know by now that I believe in following a process. And at the beginning of this process is always the gesture phase. So what does gesture mean? Gesture means that you're looking at the big picture. You're looking at whatever your subject matter is zoomed out. So rather than just kind of looking at the bear's head right away or looking at the bear's front leg, you zoom out enough and kind of let your eyes touch from head to back haunch at the same time, and see how visually these body parts kind of connect together. And I do this very intuitively. There's not a lot of analysis as I do this. It's just I'm letting my hand have fun. Once I have this, I'm switching now into my exercise. So I was introducing, as we got started, this idea that every week there's a different subject matter, every week there's a different focus within that subject matter, like a different lesson, if you so will. And I don't know where I was going to go with that thought. This idea that it's so useful to, I swear to God, sometimes it's useful to have a focus to your drawing. I mean, there's totally nothing wrong with just shooting the breeze and enjoying drawing for drawing's sake. You know, where you just kind of automatically just doodle away, no agenda. There's a time and place for that, for sure. But then also, I believe, especially if your goal is to keep getting better, it's so good to have a focus. And so if I'm focusing on shape, I also know that I can let go of other things. And I also will know, or will kind of remind myself, that I'm not going to let myself get to the whole rest of the drawing. I'm not going to let myself noodle away at details, because I have a purpose today, a purpose of getting better at shapes. So kind of having that clarity, because when you don't have that clarity, I think it's really easy sometimes to get frustrated because you feel aimless. You feel aimless, like you're not getting anywhere with your drawing practice. Okay, so enough about that. Let me talk a little bit about, oh, you know what? I hope this is focused enough. So let me talk about, now that I have this gesture, what have I been doing? Like, why am I making the marks that I'm making? I am looking at what's called the biggest enveloping shape of the animal. So what that means is, if you imagine you take your pencil and you give yourself about 4 to 5 angles where you connect the outermost points of the animal. So for example, like this left ear to the left paw. And you can literally do this on the screen, hold up your pencil and connect those 2 angles. And it's really useful to think about, okay, if I think about this as a hand on a clock face, what time would it be? And then whatever angle you found on your reference, you transfer that down onto your paper. So another one would be from the front left paw to the right front paw. What kind of angle do you get there? And you don't want to get these angles too small. So then right front paw to back paw. Again, like if I take that angle, what time would that be? It's fairly flat. So I'm going to let myself bring this down a little bit more. And then back heel to maybe that hump up here. And then you go from that back hump to that front ear. So these are the angles that you see me draw. Now, why is this so good? Like, why is this so useful? It's useful because, sorry, I was kind of clicking around on the camera again. Because when you start with the big picture, then you can get gradually smaller and smaller, and you know that your big picture is in place. So next would be looking at the slightly smaller sub shapes. So you go from the biggest enveloping shape to slightly smaller sub shapes. And a little trick here, it's not really a trick, it's just, you know, what artists do. Rather than looking at the things that you want to draw, like the front leg, look at the shapes in between the things. So the shape in between the two legs, for example, is a really useful one. Now, why would that be useful? Why not, like if I want to draw the leg, why shouldn't I be focusing on the leg? And the reason is that we have all kinds of assumptions about what a leg is supposed to look like, whether it's the leg from a bear or the leg from a person. We all have opinions, we all have ideas, and those ideas, these assumptions, they keep us from truly seeing what's in front of us. Like, I don't know, you might have experienced this, like especially if you do figure drawing. Let's say you have a pose where the model, like where the model's thigh is coming straight at you and it's like really foreshortened. And then you do your best to draw that. And then you look at your drawing and your brain tells you, oh, it can't possibly look like this. Just because it's like a really odd shape. So if you, I don't know if anybody's watching. Here, let me scoot that over. Thanks, Bill, for letting me know. Where was I going with what I was saying? Doesn't matter. So, oh yeah, so just that we doubt our best guesses. If they are looking strange, if they're an unexpected shape from how we think something is supposed to look. Okay, so now the other thing that you might have noticed me doing is I'm mainly using straight angles. I'm just cleaning up some of these preliminary marks. Now, when I started out with my gesture, I definitely had some curves going on. Gesture phase is organic, it's curvy. But as I get more into this shape / proportion phase, I switch into using straight angles. Just a second here. Now, what's the benefit of using straight angles? The benefit is that you have more clarity on what kind of curve you're dealing with. Curves are super complex in nature, and it takes our hand and brain a lot of practice to perfectly calibrate the accurate kind of a curve. But for some reason, our brains are pretty adept at capturing angles. That's why we begin with these big overall angles. And then as you have these big angles, you can then pare it down into smaller and smaller angles. Again, because you're really good at telling, is it this or this or this? And that's why I instruct all my students, if we're doing something where we're interested in accurate proportion, to use straight angles in the shape phase. So I have about 5 bear images. I'm going to be cycling through them about 15 minutes per image. Maybe at the end, I'll let myself get carried away and draw some more. But again, I look at these sketch sessions as workout sessions. You know, it's same thing as if you go to the gym and you're focusing on either cardio that day. If you have a cardio day, you're not going to do as much, I don't know, weightlifting. Not that I go to the gym, so I wouldn't really know what happens there. But same idea. It's like if I'm focusing on shape, I'm not going to be wasting time. Not that it would be a huge waste, but I'm not going to spend much time on value. So I'm not going to shade things in when I focus on shape. So as I'm doing this, especially in the beginning, I'll be mindful to pause frequently and zoom out. And when I zoom out, I kind of glance back and forth between my drawing and the reference and kind of listening. Okay, as I do this comparative looking, what's calling out, like what's giving me a subtle irk, you know? And that's where I trust my intuition then again. Like if my gut tells me, you know what, there's something off on the back, then I'll start to investigate. But the trick, and it's really not a trick, but the trick is to remember to stop. We often get so caught up in drawing because we think that when we make marks that's drawing. And if we don't make marks, we're not drawing, which is bullshit. It's really not the case, because drawing is not just making marks, drawing is also looking, or primarily looking, seeing well, understanding things well. So making active, engaged looking part of your drawing process is key to better proportions. All right, so we're about at the 15-minute mark. So because I like this guy on the rock, I'm gonna scoot the slide over and draw this guy over here. I think that's kind of cool. And these are not the best pictures ever, but they don't have to be, because if I wanted to focus on detail or on anatomy, I would definitely want to have better imagery. But since I'm focusing on shape, this is perfectly sufficient. So beginning yet again with a gesture phase. This is where I allow myself to make curvy marks, where I visually fuse body parts together, or let my hand search things out. Where I place all the main occurrences, the main elements. All right, so gesture phase finished for this one. So now I'm gonna make this mental switch into the shape and proportion phase. So let's define terms a little bit. The definition of shape is the 2D appearance of something, the flat appearance of something. Sorry, I'm using my pencil as a measuring tool right now. Getting these outer shape angles placed well. And proportion is linked to that flat appearance. Proportion is the height to width relationship of something. a relationship period. So what does that mean in more depth? It means that we're paying attention to how wide this bear's width is in relationship to its height. And notice how I'm holding my pencil to figure this out, like from the widest point on the ear to that butt area. If I go to the tallest point of the pose, and you can do this on the screen again, so I'm going to lean forward and do this on the screen from ear to height. I'm noticing as I'm doing this, the width is slightly wider than the height. So I'm going to double check myself because I think mine is almost square in relationship. No, actually, I'm going to see how my pencil is kind of sticking beyond. So that's what I measured on the screen. So I'm in good shape, no pun intended. So now that I have my big envelope, the big enveloping shape, I'm gonna go for slightly smaller shapes. And so as you do this, like I'm working now on the shape that's in between the head and the foreleg. You also want to think again about relationships. So that head area, like is that, like if you go from top to bottom, is that halfway through or is it at about a third? So it's not quite a third, but it's also not halfway. So it's somewhere in between. So this is how you would check height proportions. You place a horizontal at the area you're curious about. You follow that horizontal through, see where else it aligns with. And then you can ask, okay, now if I take that height, does it fit 1.5 times into the rest of the pose or 2 times? So that's how you can figure that out. As I'm getting into these spaces in between the legs, for example, I kind of have to remind myself not to get too detailed too soon. Now, that's always the temptation. We artists, not all of us, but I think a lot of us, we thrive on detail and nuance. We notice, we are the ones in the room who usually notice things that others don't notice. And for a lot of us, that becomes part of how we see ourselves. We're the ones who notice subtle stuff. However, in your drawing process, you don't want to get to those subtle things too soon, because if you do, then you lose sight of those big relationships. And when you miss your big relationships, you have a wobbly foundation for your drawing. There's something going on with this. It's not quite right. Let's go here. So another thing that might be useful is as you're drawing, and you're kind of checking in with your drawing, if you get that kind of feedback, that internal feedback of like, this sucks, or like, something is wrong, something isn't right, rather than getting freaked out by that, take that as your cue that now it's time to pause and to zoom out. Like if I can give you a single tip for tonight, it's zoom out frequently. Because again, proportions, shapes hinge on the big picture. And we physically cannot see the big picture if we're zoomed into individual sections. So right now, like, this is irking me, like that foreleg isn't quite right. So I'm gonna take this out. And don't be timid when it comes to correcting stuff. Like, be ruthless. Like, take a weed whacker approach. If you know it's wrong, just take it out and redraw it. Like, usually our hesitation to redraw things comes from skipping ahead in the process. Like getting to details too soon, and then you get attached to those lovely ears that you just drew, or the beautiful claws that you had, and then you're attached to them, and then you don't want to mess with them, and then you end up with like a subpar shape, and that's a bummer. Okay, so again, like right now, if you could see me, I'm leaning back and kind of zooming out, kind of checking if that feels better now. If it still feels off, like I still feel like the head's too big. And keep working away at that, keeping an eye on the time. So again, as I said earlier, you can't really see right now if there's anybody live, but if you catch the recording, please still do this too. Let me know in the comments what you'd be interested in practicing in the coming weeks. Like, I mean, I'd be doing this on my own just because I love drawing and, makes me happy. So I'm going to be sitting here regardless. But I would love it if I could help you as I'm kind of having fun. So if you're dying to draw, I don't know, skyscrapers, let me know. Not that I'd be really thrilled about that kind of a lesson, but I'd do it. Okay, let's get to the top edge. So I'm pleased enough with what's happening here. Cleaning up some of the underlying tangles. I want to do a little bit more back here, and then I'll get to the next bear. So again, using very clear straight angles. So I've heard another teacher talk about them as architectural lines. And I'm drawing them always slightly longer than they need to be, because like that, I get a clear sense. Yeah, that's looking not bad. I don't know about you guys, but I'm having fun. I love drawing, especially animals. That's so where it's at for me. And the nice thing is, like, when you go to the zoo and you want to sketch, that's totally fun and all, but usually the results are kind of meh, just because, the damn things just keep moving around, and all you get to is usually just a really quick scribbled gesture. But with some nice still reference, you can really study like what's happening. Okay. All right, I'm getting into internal information, which is really not the point of tonight. Tonight is really about shape. So I'm gonna leave this pose where it's at. You know what you could do if you want to get a really clear sense of your shape is mass it in. I don't mean like scribble like in a weird funky way, but like, single direction, carefully massing in the silhouette. because that's essentially what we're talking about when we say shape. When we say shape, we mean, again, the flat appearance of your subject matter. And you get a better sense of it when you mass it in. And notice I'm not saying when you're shading it in, because then people mistake it as like, oh, when you're making it darker here because it's darker there. No, that's not what I mean. I mean that you literally mass over the whole thing to create a silhouette in just one value. And then before you let yourself move on, you clean up the edges of that silhouette. And then if you have, let's say you do a whole page of these, just these massed in drawings like that, then you could take it to the next level and make it about design and ask yourself, now which one of my silhouettes that I've drawn is the most interesting? And you just notice about what's an engaging shape and what makes for a boring shape. So that would then be the next level of the exercise. So let me get to the next bear. That's the one I had in the preview image, but let's do this one. He's cute. Okay, just making sure that you guys see that. All right. And switching gears, in the beginning, I allow myself curvy lines. In this beginning phase, I really like to squint. Because when you want to see the big picture, even for the gesture, you're interested in the big picture. You don't want to get sidetracked by detail. So just as I said earlier, like we're so enticed by detail, and for good reason. But, we need to have strategies to make sure that we don't get sidetracked by it. So squinting is a good strategy in my book. Okay, I'm done with my gesture. Now I'm gonna look at my big enveloping shape. Now it's much flatter. And when you go for your big enveloping shape, don't give yourself too many angles. 4 to 5. Otherwise, the angle police is going to come by and take away your pencils. Okay, so I've got my biggest enveloping shape. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ooh, cutting it close. 6 angles. Living on the edge. And there's really no, right answer. You can go from the heel to the arc up here. You could even go from the heel to the hump that he has by his spine. You can go from the heel to that area where the butt begins. You find the most significant angles to you. And that's really how your voice comes through in a drawing. It's by your choices, your decisions. All right, the other thing I will do is, again, I will find my height to width relationships. And I do this on the screen. I'm taking my pencil, I'm going from the ear to the bottom of the paw. I'll show you just in a second in a drawing. So about 1 1/3. So I went from right about where the ear is to this paw. See how I'm taking that measurement in with my pencil? And now I'm going from the right edge all the way to the left edge. And this height should fit about 1 time plus 1/3 into the whole shape. So for me, my proportions are on point. So I can let myself move forward without feeling, without doubting if I'm in the ballpark. If any questions come up about anything I say or anything that you've been hearing, anything that you've been experiencing in your own drawing practice, let me know. I can see the chat, I just can't see if there's anybody here. Not yet. As I do these more, I'll hopefully get better at the whole technology aspect of it. It's quite the learning curve, I can tell you. But it's all fun. It's so funny, like I used to be the most averse person to anything tech related. I was all about traditional media and I don't know, hands-on, and I still am. Like, I think there's such a huge value in like doing things with your hands rather than being on the computer all day. But man, like, you know, if you're rigid in that regard, then there's really not a lot community you can get these days. So I'm so happy that we have like so many platforms that we can connect through and draw together on and learn. Gosh, there's so many great ways that I've been exploring to teach my classes. And let me tell you, a lot of it is better than in life. I have to admit, I used to think that you have to be in the room together to really learn drawing, but there's the only thing that's not as good is there's it's a little bit trickier to get real life feedback, but I have been working on doing that, like giving real life feedback to the students in the virtual classroom, and I have some solutions up my sleeve. So anyways, all this to say that I'm new to live streaming. I'm trying to find ways to make these sketch sessions even more valuable to you. If there's something that you think would be awesome, if I could figure out, let me know. Okay, so right now I'm pausing because I'm getting a little, my spider sense is tingling. I'm getting a little irk, and the little irk is happening right in here. And it is subtle, but I feel like this peak here, if I just look at that shape, like it feels to me like it should be a steeper shape, like that. And I have a fairly flat shape, so I'm gonna use an alignment. What the heck's an alignment? It's when you put a horizontal or a vertical to a point in question, and you follow it and see where, like, what other areas does it intersect with. So I'm doing that on the reference. Okay, so it's below the head. So I might go a little bit higher. And then I don't just check one alignment, I have to check multiple alignments. So I'm gonna check like a vertical alignment if there's maybe a mistake in here, and I think there is. So I think Yeah, so this edge right here, that needs to be scooted over to the left. So so again, don't take, isn't there a saying don't take any prisoners or something like that? I don't know. I'm German. A lot of these sayings or idioms, like I didn't grow up with them, so I always mix them up. Okay, where's this arc? This is by the ear. Okay, so this goes here. I think that's fine. Doing a lot of vertical alignments. So basically looking at parts of this front leg in relationship to the head. And now, let's bring this guy over. There we go. Again, I'm focusing my eye on the space, that shape, kind of this grayish shape created by the ground, more so than the leg itself. Because my brain wants to tell me what it's supposed to look like, and I don't want to trust that right now. You know, the thing with making corrections to your drawings and going through the hassle, and it can often really feel like a hassle, going through the hassle of pausing, zooming out, checking alignments. Like, nobody wants to be doing that. I just want to draw too. Like, it's so much more fun to make marks on the paper and, I don't know, just sink into that part. But there is like this courage that you build if you do attend to it, because, like, you know, you kind of have to take a deep breath and, okay, I made a mistake apparently somewhere, you know, and then kind of training that, I think, is a really good thing. Okay, so now again, I'm zooming out, I'm looking, I feel better now about how steep this is. And just because you make mistakes in your drawing doesn't mean that you're a bad artist. It just means that you're an artist. It's just, how quickly are you going to get over the fact that you made a mistake? How quickly are you going to pivot and redirect your drawing? You know, that's what separates the good artists. They don't make a drama out of making mistakes. They know that they make mistakes all the time, but they dance with them. They include them in the process. They're not ashamed of it. I don't know, maybe some people are, I don't know, but for me, it's just, that always backfires. I still have a little bit of time on this one. So if you've been drawing with me in the past few months, you know that I'm sharing my studio with two cats. One is the mama cat and the other one is the kitten. And I don't know what it is. They were tranquil and calm all day. And then as soon as I hit the live button, like they get alerted. It's like, oh, she's trying to do something. We have to participate. And so he's not been too bad today, but the kitten, he's currently on my lap. And last night when I was teaching class, he was literally at the end of the class. I was holding a bunch of charcoal pencils in my left hand in case the other one breaks. And he was chewing at the tips of the charcoal pencils. And then when I basically put away the charcoal pencils in hopes that he would get bored, he just decided that attacking and biting my elbow, my drawing hand, my drawing arm elbow, that's a way better use of his time than leaving me alone. So any meows you hear, any power disconnections, any of that, I blame it on the cats. All right, so again, I'm getting caught in inner stuff when I want to work more on my outer. So here. All right, not bad. Let me tweak a little bit here. So again, before I let myself move on, I'm pausing. I'm visually zooming out so I can see from here to here in one glance. And then I'm kind of flicking my eyes up and down between reference, my computer is in front of me, so reference there. I'm just kind of listening, visually listen to what stands out. Well, one thing that stands out is this should be lower. So let's see. Not a lot, just a little bit. So again, that would be a proportion issue. Proportion are relationships, so the relationship between how high this is in relationship to that, that's still part of this. All right, feels good. So last 15 minutes, let's get to a different bear. If it'll let me. So do this one. Oh, there. Okay, which one should I do? Let's do this back view one here. I've done some front views, 3/4. And again, I know it's a fairly grainy picture, but again, it doesn't matter because we're after the silhouette. So actually it's good. It's good that we don't have all the details to get distracted by. And let me scoot his butt over so you guys can see the whole bear. All right. So again, okay, don't attack each other here. When I'm doing the gesture, I know I'm not talking officially about gesture today, I'm looking for connections. How does the nose connect to the stomach? How does the nose connect to the back? Like what kind of arcs are being created there? Okay, so in this gesture phase, or as I'm kind of done with the gesture phase, sorry, grabbing this cat out of the way. So I'm zoomed out, kind of checking, of this going back, of this coming forward, this going down. Okay, so now let's get into the big enveloping shape. Ear to back arc to butt to heel. And so you can go on the screen and use your pencil to take some physical angles, but you can also just do your best and guess, as in like I'm creating that connection as I'm looking from nose to hind foot, and then in my head I'm drawing that angle, and then I duplicate that angle on the page. And the more you do that, the more you improve your eye-hand coordination. So of course you want to double check, and you don't want to just leave it unchecked, but I'm saying it especially for anybody who doubts their hand. Kind of need to do the scary things to get better at them. So if it's scary to just kind of lay down a mark, lay down an angle, make a statement about what angle it is, the more you do it, the better your guesses become. Because that's really what all the drawing is. Drawing is just making a bunch of guesses. Is it this angle? Is it that long? Nope. A little bit shorter, a little bit more slanted, a little bit less slanted. Like, it's not, drawing is not that mysterious. Like, people like to shroud it in this, oh, and you have to be super talented, and you have to know all the special techniques. You really don't. I mean, sure, of course you need to know what you should be thinking about. But in the end, it really comes down to, what angle is this? How long is it? How long is it in relationship to all the other angles that are in this picture? And now that I have all my angles, how do I make this look 3D? Like, what inner angles do I need? Now that I have that, if I want to add some lights and darks, where do I place them? So drawing becomes really demystified when you know the right questions to ask. It's not about having the answers. And anybody who's trying to sell you the only way of doing this, they're full of shit. They only have one leg to stand on. Okay, so before I get, how I start with these big angles, right? And then I start breaking it into these smaller sub-angles. Before I get too granular with these smaller angles, I need to pause myself. I need to stop and zoom out so I can catch any issues before I get too far along. So I haven't even checked my height to width relationships. It feels pretty good to me, but since we're talking about it, I'm gonna grab from the back to the foot. Okay, 1 2/3 about. So from this back arc to that foot, it's supposed to fit 1 time and about 1/3. So I'm right now getting 1 time and about 1/2. So I could make it less tall. No, more tall. I have to figure it out. Let me test this. So if I make it taller, then I get 1, then it's more. Okay, I see. So I need to make it taller. And now I'm asking myself, do I want to make it taller top-wise or taller bottom-wise? Let's make it taller bottom-wise, like this. And it's not much anyways, just a little bit. Go away. So I'm looking big, negative shape. So negative shape is just the artist's way of saying the spaces in between things. From here And so the thought experiment, when I'm having students look at negative spaces, the thought experiment I have them go through is like pretend this was construction paper, like that bluish gray shape. If you cut that out, what would that shape look like? And if you cut that shape out in your drawing, would you get that same kind of shape? It's like as soon as I think about cutting things out of paper, it brings my mind to that flat perception. Keeping an eye on the time so you don't run too much over. If you have any other commitments. In the email, so I send an email out every week which kind of has anything pertaining to drawing regularly, like tips, ideas, stories that relate to that. And then today's email was talking about, having fallen into this routine, this pandemic-induced routine that I kind of need to snap out of it, which is why it's so good to be drawing bears today, because I've been drawing the figure for the last 7 weeks and enjoying it, but it's so good to shake it up. And in the email I was referencing for 3 movies, which are actually 2 movies and a TV show, that kind of have that theme of like a repetition. And one of them is Russian Doll. It's a Netflix show. And I just had to think about it because I said, if you have any other commitments for this evening. So maybe watching Netflix is one of your commitments for the evening. And if it is, then I highly recommend you watch Russian Doll. It's such a good show. And it's not a long show. It wraps itself up within that first season. So maybe it's one of those mini series, and it's wrapped up really well. It's like not where it ends and you're dissatisfied with the ending, Game of Thrones, but it ends really well. So here on that hind leg, I had one of those moments. My brain was telling me, this can't possibly be this low. This can't possibly be such a big rounded butt area. And so it's not dialed in yet 100%, so I'll keep working on it. But I can't listen to that part. I need to use some tools, some tricks of the trade, some alignments to really find the truth rather than just kind of expecting it to look a certain way. So it's so strange. I'm sitting here, I'm having a great time drawing, I'm talking to myself. I don't know if anybody is listening. So if anybody is here, I'd love it if you pop something into the comments, whether you've seen Russian Doll maybe, or I don't know, anything. Even if you're watching it after the fact, like if you're not catching the live thing. It makes me feel like I'm not just here by myself, but that we're actually hanging out. And I totally know that you're probably having pencils in hand and the last thing you want to do is type something right now, so I get that too. So no pressure. Okay, let me zoom out. Something is happening here and I'm not sure what. I think this is too high. Let me take a measurement. So if you're seeing my arm reach into the picture, it's because I'm measuring on the screen. 2.5. 1, 2, 1. Maybe make it a little bit lower. Yeah, you're welcome. I hope you watch it. If that's your kind of a show. I think it's like, I like dark humor, so the Russian Doll show is dark humor, but it's also deep. Like that's what I like, you know, just like looking at all the kind of difficult things life throws at you, but then like through just how ridiculous sometimes things are and how funny we are as people. There's another movie that's kind of in that line that makes me think. It's called, of course I can't think of it right now. It's with Elijah Wood, and he plays a Jew who goes to Ukraine to meet his grandfather and finds out about the whole family history. And it's very heavy in a way, but it's so funny. So that would be another one. But of course, if I think about the title, I'll put it in the comments later on. Okay, there's another bear. There's something wrong with this bear. Maybe. Not like totally wrong, it's just something is not quite right. So if I had another 5 minutes, what I would do is I would do this on this, give it the silhouette treatment, and then kind of do a glancing up and down sort of a thing. I think it's in this nose. So anyways, let me switch over though and sign off. Alrighty, so thank you for hanging out with me. I hope, I saw that Bill is digging his drawings tonight, so I'm glad you're into it. Glad you're doing something different with me tonight. Next week, so the four categories after figure, portrait, and animal, the last category is stuff, inanimate things. So often I'll be doing nature things just because I like drawing trees and stuff like that. So I haven't decided yet, but it's something inanimate. And I don't know what the lesson will be yet. So if you have requests, by all means, let me know, and then I can tailor it to what you would like. If you are new to me, if you're watching this and you don't get my emails, be sure to get onto the email list so you get all the updates of when I'm doing the next live stream. If you sign up, or when you sign up for the email list, you get a really awesome workbook where it's 3 simple questions that immediately make your drawings better. So you can find that link in the description of this live. So it's kiraoc.com/3 questions. You get on the email list, you get all the reminders, you get the entertaining emails, as well as the updates of what we'll be covering. So let me see. Okay, there are people watching, 6 watching. Thanks for letting me know. Oh, Chris, nice, fun time. Oh, glad, you're welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Alrighty, so that was it from me, and I'll see you next time. Oh, and if you want to share your drawings with me, I'm on Instagram at Kira Studios. So if you just take a snapshot of what you're drawing and tag me, then I can give you a thumbs up and cheer you on. I want to be your cheerleader and coach and whatever, keeping you drawing. So I can do that if we connect on several platforms. Alrighty, thanks for being here. This was fun. I'll see you soon.